and I wanted to share with you one of those texts, which not only is an inspiration for my practice, but gives me some guidance about what is the relationship between the rest of my life and my practice. Because I really don't want to bifurcate. I don't want to have my practice being separate from my life. I want it to be all of a piece. So if you would just share this text, which comes from 1 Kings, and it's the story of, is the text coming? I'll tell you about it. It's the story of Elijah, and he's kind of on the run. He's hiding in a cave, and he is really in a lot of trouble, and a lot of trouble inside himself. So the text says, "Come out," and God is calling to him. "Stand on the mountain before God," and lo, God passed. And there was a great and mighty wind, splitting mountains and shattering rocks by the power of God. But God was not in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake. But God was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, fire. But God was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. So what really grabbed me about this text was it felt like it was a description of my life. My life was at the moment is filled with wind and earthquake and fire. There seems to be some tumult, and maybe that's a reflection also of the world out there, and that wind, and that earthquake and the fire represent kind of the constant change and the destabilizing forces of life that can kind of and so what the text for me was saying is that all of that is leading me somewhere, and how I receive my life of tumult really matters, because I can receive it in a way that's just sort of like, knocks me for a loop and just sends me into unconsciousness, or I can receive it in a way where every step of the journey is an awakening and an enlivening force. I say we are broken open, and when we receive our lives in that way, that we are sent into the silence and to a practice of listening. And that practice of listening is our meditation practice. And the still small voice represents, the fruits of that practice, really. So I want to, as I chant these words, I want to put inside me this possibility that everything that happens in the world and in my own life, all of that tumult, is bringing me to a place of enlivened, conscious, spacious, loving awareness. And in the silence that follows, in those moments, I can turn inward and listen. And so the practice of listening is not about what we hear. It's actually about the stance we take, a stance of receptivity, of curiosity, of openness, of a kind of like I sort of tilt my head in a certain way towards the inside, that I am opening to this larger reality that's bigger than any earthquake, fire, or wind. And I'm attuning myself to this larger reality. So I want to take these words with you and bring them to life. And when I chant, I am really invoking the reality of this truth. So the words "V'achar ha'esh" really encompasses all the tumult of our lives. And whether it's good or it's bad, it is a force that will break me open, that will awaken me and allow me to enter through into this larger space of my being. So achar ha'esh, and then when I say kol, demama, daka, I am refining the quality of my awareness and giving myself some instruction for the silence. So we'll chant this for a little while and then move into the silence. And in that silence, we want to just keep turning inward, keep listening, and notice that the listening itself changes the quality of our presence. V'achar ha'esh kol demama daka. V'achar ha'esh kol demama daka. V'achar ha'esh kol demama. Try this with me. V'achar ha'esh kol demama daka. V'achar ha'esh kol demama daka. V'achar ha'esh וחרש, וחרש, כל דממה דקה, וחרש, וחרש, כל דממה דקה, וחרש, וחרש, כל דממה דקה, כל דממה דקה, כל דממה דקה. And listen. As we return now to the chant, we can notice that the quality of presence that we have cultivated in the silence, that encounter with the still small voice, can change us and allow us to meet the wind, the earthquake, and the fire in a different way, without so much resistance, without so much struggle, but instead receiving everything of the world and all of the movement of change inside us as a kind of a force of awakening, a force of enlivening, a force of connection. And so our practice brings us back into the world transformed. So let's chant these words again for a few minutes and enter back into the powerful forces of the world, and this time welcoming that fire, welcoming that earthquake and that wind as it blows us into who we are becoming.
Thank you so much, Shefa, for that gorgeous practice. Before we close, we end our time together with the Mourner's Kaddish. So for those who are in mourning or observing a yortzeit, if it is your practice to participate in Kaddish, this is time for you to do so. And if you are not reciting Kaddish, you're invited to stay present and offer your compassion and presence and love to those who are in mourning. If you are observing Kaddish, you are welcome to put the names of anyone you were remembering in the chat. So thank you, Max and Jet, for sharing the words of Kaddish on our screen. And if you are reciting Kaddish, I invite you to unmute yourself and join me in body or in spirit to rise as we recite these words together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi. Bialma divrach yurtei.
All the Israel, Bagalan, Amen.
So thank you again, Rabbi Shefa, for that beautiful teaching and song and practice. Before we close, we'll share again in the chat box the link to our website with where, if you are able to and so moved, anyone can make a donation in support of this work. And for those who are leaving now, we wish you good health and shalom. Hope to see you tomorrow at the same time. And those of you who would like to are welcome to stay on here for the next 15 minutes to ask Shefa any questions that arose for you in today's practice or to share your reflection on today's meditation. So if you have a question, you're invited to share it in the chat. Please preempt it with the word question in all caps so that we can make sure to notice it. And you're welcome to share reflections as well. So Shefa, wow, what a gift, what a pleasure to get to drop into practice with you and your beautiful song. One question that came up for me that I'd love to hear your perspective on. I was actually speaking with a friend about this yesterday, who's in a moment in her life where she's making a really big decision, like a really huge life decision that's requiring a tremendous amount of discernment. And we were talking about all the different voices, right? All the different voices that come to us in those moments that have lots of different reasons for choosing lots of different directions. And then this idea of the still small voice, the kol dmama daka, that our tradition teaches is the voice of the divine. And how do you discern that voice? How do you discern which voice is that still small voice and not all those other voices that are present and speaking to us as we're moving through our lives?
You know, I think that my meditation practice, one of the main reasons that I do it is the discernment of voices. And what I notice in all the voices that come to me inside my head is that each of them has a tone. Each of them, has a kind of an age where it was born, a place or a trauma or a, it's like there's a source that voice leads me to know who that is that's speaking. And so there's a kind of a curiosity and inquiry as I hear any voices inside me to say, who are you? Where do you come from? How old are you? Um, and in a way, I'm just that process of discernment puts me in a different kind of a receptivity. And I would say that the true spirit of guidance is a kind of a connection between my crown and my heart, like that there is a flow of energy that comes into me from like my highest wisdom, and it feels different than all of those, the kind of what I call the parliament of personality, all of the many voices inside me that vie for my attention. It has a different feel to it, a different tone to it. And I've learned that, oh, I want to put that at the center of my attention. And then notice all of the other voices with great compassion, but also with a kind of a discernment that, that they may not be the voices I want to listen, I want to follow, really.
Yeah, I wonder if you could share a little bit more about what that tone is. Like, how do you identify that voice? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? If you had any advice for anyone who's like, I want to find that voice within myself, how can I distinguish it from all the other voices?
It's coming from a lot deeper place. It emerges, and it emerges in a place of when I can get still. So in my own stillness, that knowing emerges, and it may not come in words. It may come in a kind of a feeling in my body, or a direction that I move in. But it feels like I know when it feels true, and I live by that voice. I really, it's like, and that voice of my deepest truth is often incomprehensible to everyone else, and even to me. But I know that if I take just one step in following that voice, the next step will be revealed. So it's really developing that trust in this, in my own depths, and also being able to distinguish it from the parts of me that, like, want to be liked by other people, or want to, sort of like be important, or there's lots of other voices like that. And when I can recognize them, then I know, that they're not, that there's something deeper.
Yeah, a lot of what you said there stuck out to me. One thing around just what you said about trusting that voice, right? In a way, to me, that still small voice feels similar to the voice of intuition. I don't know if it's like exactly the same for you, or if they're just maybe connected in some way, but I do feel that.
It's a deep listening, and that quality of listening is something that I have to keep practicing, because the world is noisy, my mind is noisy, and I'm looking underneath all of that noise to find what's underneath it.
Right. And there's something about the practice of trusting that voice, and as we really move and make decisions from that place, grow in that trust.
I think it's also that, related to this idea of having a calling. I think that each of us has a calling, and that we ignore that calling at our peril. So, I'm also a spiritual director, and it feels like one of the main works of spiritual direction is discerning what is the call, what are you here to do or to be, or to bring, and it's different than a professional calling. It's different, than what the world maybe thinks you should be, and so that to me is such an important, like, if I know what my calling is, then everything that I do is either aligned or misaligned with that calling. And I can make decisions according to that.
We often associate calling with career, right? It's like, what are we doing with our time? And I also love to think about calling as like, how are we doing what we're doing, not necessarily what we're doing as well. there's like something more expansive, more qualitative, more connected to the intention maybe that we're bringing.
Well, for example, one of my directees, what we came to is like, oh, I'm here to bring beauty and kindness into the world.
Mhm.
And so everything that that person is going to do or say or act, is it aligned with that? Does it bring more beauty and kindness into the world? And so, and when that person is aligned with that sole purpose, it's like everything else falls into place. And when they're misaligned with it, then it's nothing's going to work. So that's the kind of.
Thank you, Shefa. So looking just here in the chat, um, Laura asks, today's session was just what I needed. Would you offer guidance for one who is in a time of tumult as to how to continue meditation practice with a racing heart? Do you have any thoughts on that, Shefa?
Yeah. So it's that, the practice is, for me, the chant practice is a really great practice, a way of taking energy that is like intense and could maybe kind of, sort of take you away, but instead it channels it into something beautiful. So as I'm chanting that chant, it's like I'm pouring all of that heart energy that I might become a victim of. Instead, I'm pouring it into the chant, and it is. It is kind of channeled in the direction of what my intention is. So what it's like when I look at my heart and I say, well, it's just energy, and now what will I do with it? How will I channel it? And to know also that even just a moment of stillness at the end of the chant is incredibly kind of nourishing and deepening and healing. So sometimes I could, just chant for a while and then experience that one moment afterwards that sort of sends me into a deep place, and remember it. So it's, to know that it is that even though my mind might begin kind of like making up its stories again, I still had that moment, and it it's healed something in me. But in order to get to it, I have to take all of that energy and shape it in some way.
That's so beautiful. I think often we have this tendency to assume that for a meditation to be worthwhile or successful, we had to experience 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 minutes of stillness, right? Or need to be practicing every day for that substantial amount of time. And what I hear you saying is that every moment matters, which makes so much sense because that's a presupposition of mindfulness, right? It's all about attending to this moment as if this moment actually like is totally worthy of our attention and really matters. And so
And so it's bringing awareness and appreciation to that moment, and not only the experience itself, but our awareness of it, and in a kind of a sense that we're planting that moment like a seed in us, and it will grow something.
yeah, maybe not in the way that we'll expect, right?
Never.
And yeah, never. um it reminds me of also, I think about like how sometimes having a difficult conversation with someone that can be really emotionally activating, the impact of just one deep breath, like just one deep breath in one of those moments of reactivity can be a total game changer. And it's something so simple, but it's like really so valuable.
Yeah. This idea of the heart, like that is, I don't know, the Saint Augustine quote that says, "My heart is restless till it rests in you," and that so my practice is to rest in God, and because otherwise that restlessness of the heart is just going to keep me from my source, from any kind of clarity, and so I want to just keep, become, the good thing about that question that you asked was that there's awareness of the heart, and sometimes even just breathing, putting my hand on my heart and breathing into my heart, just sending the breath there, can really just bring a kind of a restfulness into God or the larger reality, and that can hold me. And I just want to say that when I'm going through tumultuous times, I lean into my practice, and I know that this is why I've been practicing, so that my practice can hold me through these times.
Beautiful. I love what you just said about your practice being resting in God. It's just a beautiful, beautiful phrase. So I think we have time maybe for one more question here. Andrew Gilbert is asking if you have any reflections for us or insights on the Hebrew word mama as still, the translation there in the kod mama daka.
Dom is a wonderful word in Hebrew that is, to me, it's a cross between stillness and silence.
Dom. It's dom mama. Yeah.
Dom.
Dom
So
is a
that's where the demama comes from. The fact that it is doubled like that, I think, just means like way, it sort of intensifies that place of stillness and silence together. That's how I read it. But isn't it lovely that we're calling on Mama in the midst of it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mama.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Shefa, for sharing your beautiful song and your wisdom with us today. As we wrap up, I'm wondering if there's anything else that you want to share about with us as far as any upcoming offerings for folks to be
I have, if you go to my website, rabbishefagol.com, there's the project that I'm really involved in right now is called Love at the Center, and how to bring love at to the center of everything we do. And you can sign up. I send out an email every week to help to use the Song of Songs really to set us on a path and of love. So, and that's kind of where I've been teaching, and the transformation that I and my students are experiencing through these texts.
Sign me up. Amen to that. Thank you so much, Shefa, and thank you everyone for joining us today, for your practice and your presence. Hope to see you here tomorrow at the same time. Be well. Blessings, everyone.